Hey, folks, if you've ever found yourself going to conference after conference or workshop after workshop, time and time again, or every year it seems that you're going to the same event, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe you're hooked on conferences and workshops. And if that's you, you've done that. This episode is definitely for you. Hey, I'm Sir Charles Carey, and I want to talk to you about those of us that are, I call it, hooked on conferences and workshops. Here's the rub. The truth of the matter is that there's nothing wrong with elevating your level of consciousness. There's nothing wrong with becoming a better version of you. There's nothing wrong with learning or continued learning. But a lot of times, what happens, many of us, we go to these conferences and workshops, and either we listen to the same people or we even listen to different people speak about the same things, yet nothing happens. So you have to ask yourself at a point, what does that mean? When should the proverbial change take place? What's going to be the difference maker for you? And I must admit, I've gone to conference after conference. For me, mostly it was because of the speaker. If it was a renowned speaker, you want to go see Jim Rohn, or you want to go see Les Brown, or whomever the person was in a given topic, or that's known for doing a good presentation or keynote. And for me, when I came up from the multi-level marketing days through, just business in general, these are some of the people, or those two I named, are some of the people that I learned were really good presenters, and I wanted to learn from them and see what all the hoopla was about. And yes, they were worth their weight in gold. I just had to understand what I was doing. And I think the frenzy of it all was that I was excited, not just because they were good or I learned that they were good, but I was also excited. And I repeatedly went to these events because the people around me were excited. And the new people that were learning about them were excited to learn about them. But the bottom line is, why do we keep going? And I think it's fair to say that sometimes we're just unclear because you might get caught up in the personality. Makes sense. If they've got a humorous spirit or overly energetic or a presentation style, that could be something that draws your attention. But you know what could happen? You might not get the message because you're looking at the antics. Or sometimes, from our perspective, we've gone, but we really weren't clear on what the hook was. What was the main source of the message? What was the call to action? And I don't mean the call to action to work with the person, but the call to action that gave us the answer to what we were looking for as it relates to what they're known for. So that's sometimes the reason that we might get a little confused or turned around, or, we go back a second and possibly a third time. Now, if you're the presenter, let's keep it real. Many people have a following, and the presenter, as you present a different topic, or you present a different angle, or an updated version, or just because you have this style about you, your followers, they want to see you, and there's nothing wrong with that. So you, the one that's going to these conferences, you're going to these different workshops and things of that nature, you really want to get something out of it. So now remember, you've gone multiple times and you've got a spiral notebook or a tablet, cell phone, whatever it is that you have, and you've taken all these notes, but do you review your notes? Have you listened to the recordings? And if you bought the presenter's information, have you gone through the information? And I can tell you honestly, some of the coaches and masterminds that I've been affiliated with, I still have the information because it is a great resource, but I have not gone through it on a continuous basis. Well, in my case, I'm fortunate that I've been practicing the things that I've learned from these people, doing keynotes, doing workshops, facilitating my own conferences, writing books. And I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you the benefit of utilizing the resources that we gain from these types of events. And there's nothing better, than to learn and to actually take advantage of what we've learned. And here's the thing: if you've got, this may make it a little easier for you. If you've got audio or video, man, when you're in the car, take a listen. If you're at home and you've got some downtime and maybe you've had a rough week, or you're doing something in your normal capacity that you're really not dialed into, you're not excited about it, you don't love it, good time to drop that DVD in or listen to that CD. Or, maybe even if the person is on YouTube, go to YouTube and revisit their message. Now, you might say, Charles, didn't you just say, why am I going to the conference or the workshop time and time again? And now you're telling me to go watch them on YouTube. What I'm trying to suggest is, if you're not getting the results that you want to get, sometimes you need to absorb the information in a different environment. Because if you absorb the information in a different environment, there's less distraction, less excitement about things that are happening around you, but you can zero in on the information that you want. And, there's nothing better than finally the light goes on and you get it. He's like, ah, man, what a wonderful feeling. And I can tell you from my own experience, I've worked with many of the greats. I've listened to many of the greats. I've gone to their conferences. And in some situations, I've been a part of their programs, coaching, masterminds, again, conferences and workshops. And at some point, this was also while I was doing my own keynotes, while I was facilitating my own conferences. So in other words, I continue to learn through the process of doing. But you have to realize, and this is a lesson, if you haven't taken notes, I'm going to suggest take notes, rewind, stop, take notes on what really resonates with you. But here is the key. You've got to pull the trigger. I can't say it any plainer than that. You have got to pull the trigger. So pulling the trigger for you may be a little different than pulling the trigger for someone else. For some of us, pulling the trigger may mean simply to buy their program. Okay. If you're at the stage where you should buy their program, or you need to buy their program, I suggest that you do just that. You've got to be willing to invest in yourself. Because once you invest, you buy the program, whatever the investment may be, that is an opportunity no one, and I mean no one, can take away from you. You've made the investment, you've invested your time, your financial resources, and now you're able to get the learning. You're able to get the training to take you from where you are to where you want to be, or from where you are to where you need to be. And guess what? There's always a level of evolution, of evolving, of getting better, of being smarter, of being wiser. And that's how it's supposed to go. That's called, simply put, growth. And I can tell you a story, honestly. Like I said, I've learned from many of the greats, whether it was Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, Delatoro McNeil, Willie Jolly. I mean, if you name them and they've been out there, I've either learned personally indirectly with them, or I've learned from afar. So I remember once in particular when I first got started and I was doing some work. I was speaking here and there, doing luncheons, speaking for government agencies. I kind of like gone through the whole Toastmasters bit. I had been a Toastmasters president. I was Toastmasters, I think, gold, or yeah, something like that. I've gone through many of the competitions. I can't think of all the phrases in the terminology that Toastmasters use. I had won some of the competitions, table topics. I'd done the competent leader. I had all these accolades from Toastmasters. So now I'm at the stage that I'm starting to actually speak outside of Toastmasters. I'm starting to, speak when people want to hire me for different events. And it's working. I'm getting paid to speak here and speak there. I'm still speaking at schools and things of that nature. And then I started working with Dr. Jolly, Dr. Willie Jolly. And I remember specifically, I went to his boot camp here. I went to his boot camp there. I'm talking about DC, Maryland, Virginia, or if he was speaking somewhere, whether it was the Power Networking Conference, or if he was at Delatore's Full Throttle Conference, wherever he was, I wanted to be there. And I made it my business to actually be there. And in the process, I was watching him like a hawk. If he moved left or right, I moved left or right. If he made a certain gesture, I made a gesture. And that was how I was learning. And it wasn't so much about mimicking, it was trying to get it right, trying to get it down. And I remember specifically one day at one of his events, he said to me, he looked at me because I think he felt it. I think he understood. He said, "Look, man, you got to just do it. You got to just do it." And I felt like, no, I don't want to be by myself. I want to keep learning. I want to do what you're doing, the way you're doing it. That's kind of how I felt. But I knew that he was right. And boy, was he right. Because as I continued to learn, as I continued to grow, as I continued to invest in myself, I started getting more and more opportunities. So it wasn't about me being hooked on conferences and workshops. It was about me really growing. However, I must admit, some of us, we go to conference after conference and we're not going with the right intentions. Yes, we're taking notes. Good thing. Yes, we're paying attention. Definitely a good thing. Yes, we're showing up. Yes, another good thing. But we're not able to decipher the information that's going to benefit us the best. And as I said in other videos, sometimes, just sometimes, we are prematurely buying stuff. Stop buying stuff until you know that you're ready to buy stuff or invest in yourself. And you're investing in yourself in a manner that really makes sense. So don't be a conference junkie or hooked on conferences and workshops if you're not going with the right intentions, with the right motivation. Well, how do I know? How do I know? Well, sometimes you have to be your own worst enemy or your own best friend, depending on how you want to look at it. So, in other words, if you realize that you've been going to conferences and workshops for, I don't know, 3, 5, 10 years, and you haven't launched your own business, you haven't started your own initiative, you don't have your own projects, you have to be able to be what I call using critical in-depth analysis. I wrote this in one of my books. I think it was Aligned by Design. Critical in-depth analysis is all about being able to critique yourself, but to do it as honestly as possible. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about sitting back and asking yourself the hard questions. Looking at, where am I zigging when I should be zagging? About really giving yourself the business as far as the overall, summary, the overall review, if you will, of where you are, so that the next time you go to a workshop or a conference and you gather the information, you know what you're looking for, you know what you want, you're willing to invest at a level in which you expect a return, and it makes sense for you, and you're gaining something from it, something that you can actively and actually apply to whatever it is you're doing. So whether it's a business, something for the community, something in your place of worship, the value you gain, you can apply it, and it can be a benefit to other people. Now, I know everyone has their own uh, thing that they're trying to do, and it really doesn't matter what you're trying to do. It's really about doing it in the best way possible with the best intentions. And it's also about doing it in a manner which not only you show up well and show up as a professional, but the people that you're doing it for, they also receive a benefit in that venture. You know, if we're not able to live this life in whatever profession where we make it better, and not just better for ourselves, but better for us, I think we're missing the point. We're missing the point of it all, because it's supposed to be about showing up and showing up in the best light possible. So I hope that you have taken some notes. I hope that you have really resonated with this message, because it's really about you learning how to be the best version of you through learning how to learn in the best way for you. That's why I say, radiate the brain and change the game. And, you want to be a participant in your own rescue, because at the end of the day, those that are watching you and those that are following you, even though you may not know it, they're depending on you. So you have to be willing and able to live your best life. And if any of that makes sense, look for our upcoming webinars on the complete strategy plan and 5 reasons your dreams never see the light of day. And I think it's important. You'll gain so much. And I love the opportunity of coaching you and working with you so that you can be the best version of you. With that being said, until next time, take care.